It is exactly like a lover in the presence of
Can you hear me clearly? Can you show a sign? Make it, yeah, good.
such devotees of the Lord. Never think of the Lord as a supreme, but think of him exactly as a common friend, a pet son, or a lover or
Vandeham Shri Guru Shridhata Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Shagadajatam Sahagadamadam Vitam Tang Sajivam Sadaitam Savadutam Parijana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Shagam Vidam Shamantra Guru Ajota Shri Guru Tar Charane Yagi Kori Abandan Manchakapadu Vyascha Kripashin Vivacha Puditanam Pavanebo Vaishnavivo Namo Namaha. Artichonda, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddha Vishnu Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Stay Shara Sadi Devi Gaudamani Mishani Nira Vishesha Navari Prasthaya Testa Shamavetu Gaur Bhakti Vedanta Ki Jai. Srila Vrindavan Thakur writes that Artichonda Kotha Jai Amrit Shrabon Jaha Shishu Rupe Krila Kore Narayan. Artichonda Kotha, the descriptions in the Artichonda of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, which you have been hearing in the readings and the discussions on the Bhashya commentary of the Bhashya of Sanat Thakur and Vrindavan Thakur's original Chaitanya Bhagavata texts. So he writes the Artichonda, which you've been studying. You're studying the first chapter. I'm seeing the schedule. You're studying up to text 56, around 70 of the chapter 1. So this Artichonda, Srila Vrindavan Thakur himself, he writes that Artichonda Kotha Jai Amrit Sravan. It is, the descriptions in the Artichonda are Jai Amrit Sravan. They're so nectarian to hear because Shishu Rupe, in the form of a child, Shishu, Rupe, Krida Kore Narayan, the Supreme Lord of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He, Krida Kore, he plays, he performs pastimes in the form of a child. So you can compare that to the various avatars of Lord Vishnu. You know, Srimad Bhagavatam, we study Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is our most important scripture. And in the third chapter, there is a list of different incarnations of Lord Vishnu. And Vaishnavas, we worship all of these incarnations. We fast on their appearance days, etc. And we glorify them, hear their discussions. Matsya avatar, Kurma avatar, Bamon avatar, Nashinga avatar, and these are all avatars, Dasha avatar. They're described. Now, in all of these avatars, we worship the Lord, and the Lord comes and he Paritunaya Salanam Vinasharja Duskritam, he annihilates miscreants and delivers the devotees. But we don't see Shishu Rupe. We don't see these forms of the Lord in their childhood pastimes. You imagine the Matsya, Bahum Rup, and Baraha. They don't have childhood pastimes. Even Lord Nrsingadev. Lord Nrsingadev, childhood pastimes. Lord Nrsingadev is Aishadya Bhav, the opulence of the Lord. You don't have intimate relationship. You don't have a familiar relationship. Your relationship with Lord Nrsingadev is formal. He's the Parameshwara and you're the servant. That's Dasha Ras Bhav. But we don't have childhood pastimes where you forget that he's the Supreme Lord, play with him. So just understand, we just take it for granted because you join the movement of Krishna consciousness and you read the Krishna book. Actually, the first book I seriously read, I didn't read the whole book, but I seriously read parts of it, was Krishna book. And I remember the first story that I read. I read the entire story on a train. And it's the story of the Brahmin wives, the Vedic Brahmin wives. They feed Krishna and Balaram, and that story in Vrindavan. So we come to Krishna consciousness. You hear about Krishna and Balaram in their Shishu Rupe Lila, their pastimes, Bal Lila, Gopal Bal Lila. It's beautiful in Vrindavan. We just take it for granted that that's Krishna, but actually this is a rare thing. Even you're studying Ramayana also. I'm not conversant in Ramayana. However, as far as I understand, there's no childhood pastimes described in Ramayana. Maybe there are, but anyway, it's Krishna, and because it's unique to Krishna, and therefore Srila Rup Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he begins that great treatise and science of devotion, science of loving Krishna. Prabhupada paraphrases the science of devotion. He begins that great treatise by describing the objective of the book is Akila Rasamrita Murti, the form of the Krishna in Vrindavan, which is the Murti, the embodiment of Akila Rash, all of the Rash, Dadosh, Rosh, 12 different relationships that you can experience with the Supreme Lord, Santa Dasha, Shakya, Vatsalya, Madhurja, and then the 7 Gaunaras, which sometimes appear. So these are enjoyed with Krishna in Vrindavan, and therefore he's a killer rasa, therefore he's the embodiment of all the rasas. You don't find other incarnations displaying all the rasas. But that same Krishna who appears in Vrindavan, Brajendra, Nandana Jai, Shachi Shuta, Hoilo Shay, that darling of the king of Braj, Shachi Shuta, Hoilo, he's become the darling of Sachimata in Navadip. So similarly, these pastimes of the Balyabhab, Prakatya, these pastimes of the Lord in childhood, they're described in Artichonda, and they are Amrit Shravan. They're very nectarian pastimes. So we'll discuss some of these childhood pastimes and relish the nectar that Srila Vrindavan Thakur is mercifully distributing to us through the descriptions of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. As we know, he's Vyas Muni, he's the incarnation of Vyasadeva. Krishna Lila Bhagavate Kohebe Vyas, Chaitanya Lila Vyas, Vrindavan Das. He is Vyas Muni, and this is the, as the Vaishnavas understand the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam, similarly the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they accept the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat as the authorized description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. And another place in Artichonda, Srila Vrindavan Thakur says that Monodiye Shunobai Sri Chaitanya Kotar. Monodiye. With attention, Shuno, listen, Bhai, Sri Chaitanya Kotar, to the descriptions of Sri Chaitanya. Bhakta Shange, J. Lila Koilo, Jota. Because Bhakta Shange, in the association of his devotees, J. Lila Koilo, one after another, the pastimes he performed, J, one after another, the pastimes he performs, Lila Koilo, Jota. Jota means as it is. Just like we have in Bangla, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Jota, as it is. That's what Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Jota. So Jota means as it is. So these descriptions that Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur is freely, mercifully inundating humanity with, these descriptions, by hearing these attentively, you can experience the actual Leela, J. Leela Koilo, Bhakta Shange, with his devotees. Listen attentively because I'm describing them as they happened. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur says himself. So there are Leelas. Actually, I was listening as Vidwan Prabhu was describing some of the in the Artichonda, some of the verses you've been looking at so far, where the Juga Avatar, the purpose of the Lord appearing as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Kali Yuga Jugadharme Namer Prochar Toti Lage Pita Barna Chaitanya Avatar. So Toti Lage for that purpose of Namer Prochar. And there have been verses that have described that or formally in the Artichonda you've heard already. And I was speaking last time we had this exalted, or we could say, assembly of Pranaya Bhakta Shamaj. We had this assembly of loving devotees who are eager to hear about Sri Caitanya Kotha. We were describing about the evolution of the Lord presenting himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in 2 or 3 of those examples, when he presents himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he mentions the purpose of his avatar. In Ram Kelly and many, we were discussing that he appeared to that Brahmin, itinerant Brahmin, and revealed himself. And then subsequently in East Bengal, when he went and he began preaching there, the Jugadharma, even before having been initiated. So in the childhood pastimes, however, we see that we see this overflowing of opulence. We were discussing that in that presentation last time, that Bhallabab Prakatiya Ashadja Deka, Bhallabab, that Nana Emote Nana Babe, Ashadja Dekai, Bhallabab Prakatiya Paschat Lukai. Vrindavan Thakur explains that Bhallabab, in his mood as a child, just like an innocent child, that he doesn't know, and he doesn't know, the innocent child, you sit down and do something, puja, they just come, and you can't explain to them. That's the level he's at this stage. And therefore, Bhallabha Prakatiya, he's just like in a playful way, he shows his opulence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Paschat Lukai, later he Lukai, he confident, he keeps it confidential. He doesn't in the Vidya Lila for many years. Not until again we go to Bangladesh, and there with Tapan Mishra, he reveals his opulence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In a dream he had, Brahman said, he's no ordinary professor, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he'll answer all your questions. But in general, during the Vidya Lila, even when he's defeating Big Vijay, of course, there in the dream, Saraswati says that he's my Prabhu, and therefore I was silent. That's another very fascinating pastime that we can discuss at a later date. But particularly in the Ballabhav, he just displays his opulence. It just like effervescent. It just bubbles over. You know, as he's playing his games, he's not really concerned about covering himself. So we'll look at one example of this. This may take us. We probably won't finish this evening, actually. But this is the topic that we'll be exploring in the Bhallabhab, in the Artichonda, and it's Amrit Shravan. So there were already pastimes described. Some pastimes, Mahaprabhu is Sachiputra. He goes to the market, and the thieves pick him up, and they try to steal with the plan to steal his ornaments. And then he's enjoying. They're taking him on his shoulders, and they're passing sweetmeats up to him, and he's enjoying eating those sweetmeats. And then his Yogamaya, mystical Aishwarya Dekai, he displays his opulence, and they think they're taking him to their hideout, and they put him down in Jagannath Mishra's courtyard. And then they realize, and he runs immediately to Jagannath Mishra. So he shows his opulence in that mystical way, in that pastime. And now we'll describe in detail some of these subsequent pastimes that happened just around that time. We're reading from text number 3. Text number 3 it is. Text number 3 of chapter 5. Text number 3 of chapter 5. Ekdin Daki Bole Mishra Purandor Amar Pushtak Ano Bap Vishambor. So he called Amar Pushtak Ano to Vishambhar, you bring my book. And just as in the same way, Nanda Baba, King Nanda Maharaj, he asks Gopal to bring his chopal, and Gopal brings Nandanandan, he brings the chopal on his head. And in this way, there's exchange of the Vatsalya Ras, loving affection, Vatsalya Rosh. So now that same Brajendra Nandan, he's appeared as Sachinandan, and Nanda Maharaj, he's appeared as Jagannath Mishra. And he doesn't request his chopal, his sandals, he requests his book because they're Brahmins. So it's very poetic. It's very poetic. You can imagine this is a Brahmin's life. This is the Brahmin's life. He's sitting down and this is his work, Brahma Karma Swabhavaj. This is his work, that patan, study and teaching. So you bring a book. You know, it's like a flag. You have a family dynasty and the flag. So it's like a symbol of the culture and ethics of the family. So the poetry, the description, in the same way, they ask, bring my book. So you can meet it in the atmosphere of scholarship and study and is created in the relationship between Vishwambar and Jagannath Mishra. And this is in a very childlike way, in a very simple way, very sweetly. Bring my book. And it's the same Nandanandan. So the same pastimes are being performed. So when Vishwambar was very happy to hear his father call him and ask him to do something. You imagine that he's the Supreme Lord. Just we forget. We think, oh yeah, we think Sachinandan. He calls him. He jumps up, gets the book. But it's like he's a child. He's completely convinced he's a child. He's playing, but actually he's the Supreme Lord. Shisharupe Krida Kode Narayan. He's the Supreme Lord. And, you know, you imagine all the responsibility the Supreme Lord has. Wow. You know, he's Srishti, creating the material world, and then, you know, maintaining everything in the material world, and supervising everything, and making sure millions of planets, unlimited planets. Is it just one planet? So that's the same person, and he's like playing as a little innocent little child. Innocent. He's like, you could say, not exactly ignorant, but he's a simple. He's not not fully aware of what's going on in the village and what's going on in the Rashtra, in the state. Right? Jagannath Mishra is, he knows the whole society network, but this young child is. So how is that the Supreme Omniscient Lord is the Lord of the three worlds? How is it that he can put himself in such a position? That he gets joy hearing his father, who's in illusion, thinking that this is his son. And he gets joy because the father, out of illusion, orders the son, bring my book. Hey, Bap, Amar Pushtak, Anao, Bap Bishambar. He just calls him. So that's so pleasing to the Lord. This is a Braja Prem, Kebal Shuddha Prem, Ashadja Na Jane. They don't have any conception, Ashadja, that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vrindavan, Krishna. And in the same way, Jagannath Mishra, he has no conception. In a dream one time, a Brahman is trying to convince him that your son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mishra Bole, Deb Shidi Muni Keni Noi, Jay Shebaro Hawk Matra Amar Tanoi, Jay. He may be a Dev Shidi Muni. He may be a mystic. He may be a great rishi. He may be the Supreme Lord himself. Jai Shebara Hawk, no matter how important and big he is, Matro Amar Tanai, as far as I'm concerned, he's just my son. So this is Braja Prem. Ashadja Deklayo Nija Shambanda Shemane, Kebal Shuddha Prem. Ashadja Na Jane, Ashadja Deklayo Nija Shambanda Shemane. Even he displays his opulence, they in that dream. But no, he's my son. I have to correct him when he makes mistakes. So this Jagannath Mishra, he's going to, even when people try and shake him out of it, your son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It still doesn't. He doesn't think like that. He's just completely. He is completely in a spell, charmed. Like in a spell, in an illusion, and that this is my son, and he believes it completely. Delusion, they call it delusional. Western psychology, delusional that this is his son. He completely believes that. You know? It's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is Jagannath Mishra, and when Vishwambar he hears his father in such it's transcendental illusion, and with such affection that he's completely absorbed in the relationship as his father. He gets great pleasure from that. Because this is his rasavai saha, this is his nature. He wants to have relationships with us. And these are the most intimate relationships because they're kebal shuddha prem. It means there's no formality there. It's just love and relationship. There's no obligation. You're the Lord, I'm the servant. So the Lord so much enjoys to. It's not that reluctantly he says, well, this guy thinks he's my father. And, I'm the Supreme Lord. But anyway, I'll play along with him because, he's my devotee. No, actually, the Lord gets great pleasure from this. Raja Vihari is his enjoyment. I mean, can you imagine? He's playing games the whole time, role-playing. We like to do role-play the whole time, but it's real. It's more real than a role-play. It's more real than our illusory conception of reality. And it's just enriched with love and affection. So as he was running in, he was happy, jumped up, ran inside, got the book, came out and gave the book to Jagannath Mishra. And then they were amazed that when he was moving in that way to get the book and bring the book back, when he was moving, Nimoy, there was the sound of Nupur Dhoni. Kotai Shuni Nupure Dhoni Chatur Dike Chai Dui Brahmoni. They're looking Chatur Dik in four directions. They're looking all around. Kotai Nupur Dhoni. Where is the sound of Nupur coming from? This Nimoy, he doesn't wear ankle bells. This is another Ashajadeka example of opulence of the Supreme Lord. He's playing games. He's enjoying. He's making the sound of ankle bells. Ki odbut dui jone moni gone. Bochona shpure dui joner bodone. So bochona shpure. They were amazed, so amazed by hearing the sound of ankle bells. I mean, it's a pretty far out, as they say in the West. Young kids, far out. We used to say when we were young kids, that's far out. It's a far out thing to have happen. You hear the sound of ankle bells as though like ting, 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 ting. As though that's what he says, the sound of Nupur. It's not just some, ting, ding, ding, ding. It's like ting, 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 like the sound, running sound. Because that's how Nupur makes sound. The sound of like a person wearing Nupur. It's like you hear Nupur. The ladies, they wear. And you hear him coming, ching, ching, ching. And the dance, South Indian, this Oriya dance, they wear the ankle bells, Bharatnatyam, ching, ching. So that's what they heard. It's like, how is that happening? He isn't wearing ankle bells, but he's playing. He's like, Ki odbut duijon in moni gone. Ki odbut duijon. That's amazing. Ki odbut. We're sitting just here beside the Odbut Mandir. But this is Odbut. Ki odbut. This is unprecedented. This is wonderful. Odbut. This is amazing. Amazing temple. Odbut, they're moni gone. They're thinking in their mind, where's the sound coming from? And they couldn't say anything. Bachan nashpure duijon bodan. They couldn't say anything there. Then another amazing thing they experienced, that when he went inside, Jagannath Mishra went inside, that Shobgrihe Deki Oparupa Padda Chinno Dvaja Braja Ankusha Patakadi Binna Binna. He sees these Apurva Rup, these Oparup Padda Chinna, these amazing, he sees these impressions around the house because they're living in a clay hut. Actually, we don't see many clay huts now in Mayapur. You could live in a clay hut here. There's Nasachinandan and the Navadip Basis did, they managed. So it's possible all year round. So, of course, there's so many advantages living in a clay hut. Because especially if you do that in Mayapur, because if it was made from Gormandal Bhumi, the earth, Mayapur, Jebajani Chintamani, that is desire fulfilling, especially spiritual desire. Chintamani. In Mayapur, you can achieve You can achieve anything, because if you desire it, it happens very easily, especially of course for Chintamani, is desiring to serve Krishna can be achieved your desires can be fulfilled in Navadip Dham very easily, because it's Chintamani, desire fulfilling, the bhumi, the earth of Navadip. So the cottage was made of, because the Lord was in touch with that. Here it is. You can see it's the same earth here. And just where I'm sitting, it's just a couple of 100 meters from where this event happened. The earth, and the same earth is there. So the imprints of the Supreme Lord, the special markings on the bottom of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, the dvaja, which is dvaja is thunderbolt. Dvaja, braja, thunderbolt, ankusha, the goad for controlling elephants, and pataka, Jai Pataka, Shami. Pataka means the flag. He's Jai Pataka Das, Jai Pataka Shami. Prabhupada gave him the name Jai Pataka Das. Jai Pataka means victory flag. Pataka, Jai Pataka. Pataka. So there's flag auspicious sign on the bottom of the lotus feet of Sri Hari. And so they see the footprints all around the house, and they see these divine signs that are only found on the lotus feet of Sri Hari. The footprints. They're pretty astonished by this. And the tears, so seeing this is like the ecstatic symptoms. Ecstasy, the love of God is overwhelming. It's overwhelming them, symptoms. They're crying. Pada podda dekhi. Dohe kore namaskar. Pada podda. The lotus feet, pada podda. That's the feet which are like Padma, lotus, pada podda. The lotus feet, pada podda dekhi. When seeing those lotus feet imprints, duha kore namaskar. They paid obeisances, bow down obeisances. Duha bole nishtaraimu janma nahi ar. And they said, this is amazing, nishtaraimu. We will be delivered. Janma nahi ar. We will not take birth again. Janma nahi ar. Right? And the Lord, the Supreme Lord, Jagannath Mishra, he begins to think that the Lord is coming down off the altar, moving around the house. So he's thinking that we're especially blessed that the Lord is from the altar, is so he's present in the house, and he's wandering around the house at night. So seeing the footprints, he falls down and pays obeisances and says, Nishtaraimu janma nahi ar. I won't take birth again, I'll be delivered. Right? Now, this in itself is rather a significant statement, because you see, he is Nanda Maharaj. He's the eternal associate of the Lord, and he appears Gauranga Shangi Gone Nitta Shiddha Korimana. He's an eternally perfected being, and he appears. He doesn't, sometimes he's like part-time, he's the Lord's father part-time, and then other times he's off doing some job down at the factory or something. I mean, no. This is all he does. He's doing this Leela in birth after birth. He's a perfected being. And he's there eternally in the spiritual realm. It's Nitya Leela. So he's that person. So he's thinking that I'm a conditioned soul. I'm a conditioned soul. And look, I'm getting the mercy of Lord Vishnu. So just see how amazing is the Yogamaya potency of the Lord. That there's Nitya Siddha, perfect being, he forgets who he is. He completely forgets that he's a perfected being. And he's just thinking he's a normal Brahmin in Navadip, and he's completely in that illusion that that's the reality. He doesn't think of himself as, actually, I'm the eternal Father of the Lord. He's amazed here. They're falling out spontaneous, overwhelmed feeling of appreciation that, oh, the Lord is reciprocating. I'm going to be liberated. I mean, how's he feeling these things? It's not that he looks to his wife and says, okay, now let's pretend that this is an amazing thing. Oh, isn't that amazing? No, he's overwhelmed. Really, the feelings are there. He's crying and paying obeisances, as one might do in a moment of great spiritual, intense experience. And he's experiencing that. So he completely forgets that he's the Supreme Personality of God, and he's thinking, I'm a recipient of such mercy, so I'm going to be delivered, not take birth again. This is Jagannath Mishra, the type. This is his devotional service. The Ragatmika, perfected being, in such a perfection, in such a perfect manner, he is serving the Lord by acting as his father, by acting as his father and giving pleasure to the Lord who wants to enjoy the pastimes. So he's thinking that the deity comes down off the altar and moves around the house. And so he says to Sachi Mata, Mishra Bole, Shuno, Vishwarupe Janani, listen, mother of Vishwarup, Grita Param Anna Randaha Apani, you make a special offering, Grita Paramanna, which means sweet rice cooked in ghee. And then tomorrow we'll do a special abhishek, Pancha Gabba, the 5 items of a cow, milk, yogurt, ghee, cow urine, cow dung. That's called Panchagabya. That's called Panchamrit Abhishek. Panchagabya, yeah, Panchagabya, it's Panchagabya, but yeah, Panchamrit Abhishek. Panchagabya Abhishek. It's called Panchagabya Abhishek. Every day to Lord Nrsimhadev. I think Panchamrit is the one, honey, milk, yogurt. We call that Panchamrit, ghee. But this one is Panchagabya Abhishek, and this is the most auspicious. The Lord is very pleased by these items of cow dung, cow urine, ghee, yogurt, milk. Every day, Lord Nrsimhadev, the Shalagram Shilas under the lotus feet of Lord Nrsimhadev are worshipped with Panchagabya Abhishek, items of the cow. It's a very developed, a very highly developed. You won't find that in temples around the world. But in Mayapur, yeah, we have all the ingredients. We have a Goshala, where in Vrindavan, wherever, we have Varnashram Dharma. These are these are, you could say, some of the benefits of serious implementation of Varnashram Dharma and looking after cows, that your deity worship can go to a whole nother level. Panchagabya Abhishek, you could do every day if you have cows. So he's going to do that day. And the next day, they're all sitting there, and Jagannath Mishra is worshipping the Shalagram Shila, Damodar Shalagram Shila. He's worshipping. And they're all sitting there. You can imagine the Vishwarup, although not mentioned directly, but you can imagine he would be there. I mean, he's the oldest son. Why father's doing a special ceremony. Naturally, the eldest son would be there, Vishwarup. But it mentions that Sachi Nandan is there, Prabhu, and he's watching Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata do this special Panchagabya puja. And Sachimata arranges everything. And and Jagannath Mishra is there doing the Abhishek. He's a Brahmin, a Brahmin. Just see, but nowadays people, something special happens, and maybe they make a cake. Here in Mayapur, someone makes a cake, sends it around, or gives prasadam, or just I give prasadam, come and take prasadam, that's it. But okay, let's do Panchagabya Abhishek for the deity on a special occasion to honor the event. Okay, that's a Brahmin. That's a Brahmin. It's not that, he's not doing it out of obligation. He's doing it out of spontaneous love and affection for his deity and the Lord, and sees the Lord in his deity and experiences sees that his life as the mercy of the Lord coming through the deity. So he worships the Lord in reciprocation to express his appreciation. So, Mate Duijon Paramahari She, they're very happy, in great happiness. Paramahari She. Shalagram Puja Kore, Prabhu Mone Hashe. And the Lord is sitting there and he's watching the whole program, and he's smiling. He's smiling as he's seeing this pastime go on. Our Ekkotar Shuno Parama Odbut. Odbut Temple? Odbut Temple? What's it called? The Odbut Mandir? Parama Odbut. Yeah, well, this is another description. Our Ekkotar Shuno, listen to it. It's Parama Odbut. It's extremely extraordinary. Parama Adbhut. Jai Ranga Korila Prabhu Jagannatha Shuta. This son of Jagannath Mishra, the way he performs his pastimes and plays. Here another pastime. So one time, at around the same time, here in Navadip, in Mayapur, on Tadip, the house of Jagannath Mishra, just a couple of blocks there, and just a few hundred meters to our left. Parama Shukriti Ek Taitika Brahman, a very pious, Parama Shukriti, very fortunate. That's described as very fortunate. Very pious, Parama Shukriti, very pious soul. Parama Shukriti, extremely pious. Taitika means mendicant. He's going from one tirtha stand to another, and he doesn't have any permanent residence. Krishna, so Taitika Brahman, Krishna Uddeshe Kori Tirtha Parajantan. Tirtha Parajantan means going from one holy place to another. Still in India, you see now, you go to Rishikesh, Jagannath Puri, these famous holy places, Varanasi, you'll see a lot of sadhus. And they live in the holy place, and pilgrims come and they beg. And then if they travel, of course, in the past, I don't know now, in recent years, maybe up to sadhus, and genuine sadhus could travel for free on Indian trains. They travel for free in the unreserved class, the genuine sadhus. They didn't, I don't know now. But yeah, sadhus could just travel from, so they can get, they're not in reserve, but they were just general class, and they could just go from one holy place to another with their bag, shoulder bag, and reach there and just line up with the other sadhus. So we still have that now, but you can imagine 500 years ago. Now you couldn't really do this. I mean, you can, but not maybe not around here. You should be able to, but some cities and stuff that you're wandering around, they were in the West, you couldn't do this. You'd be arrested for vagrancy. You can't just sleep out at night and just, go from one place to another. You can't do that in the West, you'd be arrested. In India, but yeah, maybe you can still do if you look like a sadhu. But this time, there were no laws like that. This is a common thing. Even Prabhupada said when he was a child in Kolkata that his father would host 4 or 5 sadhus every day, feed them. So 500 years ago, you can imagine. You just imagine the atmosphere in Navadip Dham, that you can wander freely like that without any cares for your maintenance. The householders you meet on the way will maintain everything they will provide everything you require. And simply Krishneru Deshe, for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. Kore Tirtha Parjantan, you can do that service of going from one holy place to another and dedicate your whole existence to serving the Lord in that way. So this Parama Shukrita Brahman, very pious Brahman, who was living in that way, he arrived at Jagannath Mishra's house. And now it's very beautiful. Vrindavan Thakur will describe this Brahman's personality. First, he describes him. First, he describes his sadhana practice. He doesn't describe his features. He's describing first his sadhana, his devotional practice. Sadaka Gopal Mantrer Kore Upashan, Shadakar Gopal Mantrer Kore Upashan. He meditates on the 6-syllable Gopal mantra. That means that's a silently chanted mantra. You hear the sounds internally, like our second initiated devotees, this Gayatri mantra. So you hear that, and in this way you worship the Lord by chanting that 6-syllable Gayatri mantra. Gopal Nabedda Bina Na Kore Bhojan. And he only ate that which he offered to his Shalagram Shila. Around his neck, Kante Bal Gopal, Bhushan Shalagram. Around his neck was a Bal Gopal deity and a Shalagram. They were his only ornaments. Kante Bal Gopal, Bhushan, Shalagram, and the Shalagram is the only ornaments. Bal Gopal deity and Shalagram. Parama Brahmana Teja Oti Onupam. And now he describes his form as being Oti Onupam, very exquisitely beautiful. And Parama Brahmana Teja, effulgent. Parama Brahmana Teja, with the Brahmana Teja, the spiritual illumination of a high level. Parama Brahmana Teja, Oti Onupam. And in this way, the form of the Brahman was very extraordinarily beautiful. Nirabade mukhe bipra Krishna Krishna bole. Nirabade, without cessation. Mukhe, from his mouth. Bipra bole Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna bole. Krishna Krishna. We heard that he worshipped the Lord by meditating on the 6-syllable Gopal mantra internally. And always he was chanting the name of Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Krishna Krishna. On today, Govinda Roshe Dui Choku Dule, Dule. On today, Dule is swinging. Dule, his Dui Chaku, his 2 eyes are rolling. As on today, Govinda Roshe, he's relishing the flavors of loving Govinda within his heart. So in this way, Srila Vrindavana Thakur describes the character of this Taitik Brahman. So we'll conclude at that point. And we'll carry on next time. Here he begins to interact with Jagannath Mishra. He asks about him and they arrange for his cooking. And so we'll carry on with the same. That's text number 21. Chapter 5, we'll carry on with that next time we meet. If there's any questions. Any questions on these topics? So thank you very much. We look forward to discussing more on Chaitanya Bhagavat, more reflections on Chaitanya Bhagavat with you in a fortnight's time. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.